March 21, 2026. Trump issued a 48-hour ultimatum. If Iran does not lift its blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, the U.S. will completely destroy its power infrastructure. The deadline came and went, but he extended it. Trump announced a 5-day delay on the strike, claiming both sides were holding highly productive talks. Shortly after, he pushed the deadline to April 6th, alleging it was at the Iranian government's request. On April 4th, he issued another 48-hour ultimatum, with much harsher rhetoric this time, warning that hellfire would rain down upon them. Yet, when the April 6th deadline arrived, he delayed again, using the exact same excuse, that both sides were engaged in a very friendly and productive dialogue. But the truth is never made public. While U.S. oil reserves are fine, oil prices keep soaring, indirectly driving up domestic inflation, a political ticking time bomb. And Trump certainly doesn't want it to detonate. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign ministry has publicly denied everything, insisting there are no talks. But look closely at their wording. They denied direct talks, but haven't denied passing messages through third-party nations. Behind the scenes, Pakistan's Army Chief of Staff is acting as the mediator, facilitating indirect contact between Vice President Vance and Iranian Parliament Speaker Kalibaf. This is the true state of this war right now. One side publicly claims they are talking, while the other deadpans a denial, while back-channel envoys tirelessly shuttle between them. One wants the world to see he's in control. The other needs his domestic audience to believe he hasn't bowed down. By the end of this video, I promise you won't just see the surface headlines, but rather the true trajectory of power operating behind the news. Let's start with a counterintuitive fact. Iran has never actually blocked the Strait of Hormuz in its entire history. In 1980, during the Iran-Iraq War, they threatened a blockade, causing oil prices to surge. In 1987, Iran attacked tankers and threatened a blockade. In 2011, under escalating sanctions, they threatened it again. In 2019, they shot down a U.S. drone, repeating the threat right up to 2026. And today, the exact same drama is playing out once more. Whenever Iran feels cornered, it flexes its muscles, and the entire world starts crying foul. This is neither a coincidence nor a loophole. It's a masterclass in seasoned leverage. Iran will never actually shut down the strait, because their own oil exports rely entirely on this passage. If they truly closed it, others would suffer, but Iran's economy would completely collapse. Yet, every time they threaten a blockade, the effect is the same. No one dares to take that gamble. In the world's most sensitive choke point, Iran plays the game best. Why is that? But the actual shipping lanes are just a few miles wide. The world consumes 100 million barrels of oil daily, and 1/5 of it passes right through here. More strikingly, when it comes to total seaborne oil, Hormuz handles over 1/3 of the global volume. Add to that Qatar's massive LNG exports, which must also squeeze through this narrow choke point. While Saudi Arabia and the UAE have bypass pipelines to the Red Sea, intended to circumvent Hormuz, their capacity is far from enough. Combined, these pipelines have a maximum capacity of only 2.6 to 3.5 million barrels per day. Meanwhile, Hormuz routinely handles over 20 million barrels a day. Back in 1971, right as British forces withdrew from the Gulf, creating a power vacuum just 2 days before the UAE's independence, the Iranian military seized the Greater and Lesser Tons, along with Abu Musa Island. These 3 islands occupy the most strategic positions in the strait. To this day, the UAE still claims sovereignty over them, but de facto control remains firmly with Iran. unaltered for over 50 years. Following the 1979 Islamic Revolution, Iran systematically began deploying anti-ship missiles along the coast, enhancing its mine-laying capabilities and training fast-attack speedboat units. They don't even need high-tech weapons. They just need to make people believe that they are fully capable of blowing up oil tankers. Because in the City of London, there is an organization called the Joint War Committee. It comprises underwriting representatives from Lloyd's and the London insurance market, specifically tasked with assessing war risks for global shipping and pricing marine insurance policies. It's not a government agency and has no enforcement power, but the moment it designates a body of water as a high-risk zone, that area is as good as blockaded. Take this current conflict. The Joint War Committee held an emergency meeting and designated the waters around Hormuz as a high-risk zone, placing the coastal waters of Bahrain, Djibouti, Kuwait, Oman, and Qatar entirely under its warning advisory. As a result, war risk insurance premiums for certain underwriters skyrocketed to over 10 times their normal rates. Insurance policies for most merchant ships worldwide automatically triggered exclusion clauses, meaning if your ship enters these waters after the advisory and anything happens, the insurance company won't pay a single dime. Without insurance, you become an illicit vessel on the high seas, and no mainstream port will allow you to dock. Before the conflict erupted, an average of 77 ships crossed Hormuz daily. By March 3rd, that number plummeted to 40. Iran hadn't even struck a single vessel. Yet an organization thousands of miles away completed the blockade for them. Next to fan the flames wasn't a military, but a name you all know too well: Wall Street. Wall Street hedge funds operate on a dead simple playbook. Rising tensions mean oil prices are bound to surge. So they buy up crude oil futures and sit back to watch the profits roll in. This massive buying spree, in turn, drives prices even higher. With prices rising, market panic worsens, sparking an influx of capital that drives prices sky high. If you think Iran is the sole villain in this conflict, think again. They merely shouted a few loud threats, flexed their muscles, fingered the trigger of an RPG, and then retreated into a bunker to play PS5. They're probably playing Call of Duty, controlling U.S. troops fighting terrorists. Outside the bunker, the Joint War Committee and Wall Street handle the rest. Wall Street hedge funds fan the flames for them, lining their own pockets in the process. This sends global oil prices skyrocketing, followed closely by consumer goods. But make no mistake, plenty of players are getting a piece of the pie in this game. In reality, Iran has long relied on illicit gray market channels via a massive ghost fleet. They switch off their AIS transponders, forego insurance, refuse US dollars, and conduct covert ship-to-ship transfers under the cover of night. Through intermediaries and third-country transshipments, a steady stream of oil hits the market. Since this oil is illicit, it obviously can't be sold at market price. But you don't have to wait for Black Friday or Cyber Monday. We Iranians don't play those marketing games. Everything is 30% off, a flat rate per barrel. No scams, no catch, and we can even write you an invoice. For example, when global oil is at $70, Iran sells a barrel for $49. When the price spikes to $100, apply the same 30% discount, and Iran pulls in $70 a barrel. According to IEA data from 2023, Iran's oil production sits at around 3.1 million barrels per day. Just by talking big and flexing their muscles, think about the extra daily revenue. Meanwhile, Russia is scoring an effortless win as well. Since Russian oil is also under sanctions, forcing it to sell at a discount, this price spike hands them a massive revenue boost. The Financial Times reports that since the Hormuz conflict broke out, Russia has raked in a windfall of up to $150 million every single day. Gulf oil giants like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Kuwait, and Iraq. For every $10 bump in oil prices, Saudi Arabia pockets tens of billions more annually. Occasional skirmishes allow them to drive up prices, while long-term stability continues to attract foreign investment. Countries like Malaysia, Norway, and Kazakhstan might not be the first names you think of regarding oil. But as mid-tier energy exporters, they also cash in on the price hikes. But the most unexpected beneficiary might be London's luxury housing market. Every time a Middle East crisis hits, Gulf petrodollars flood into London real estate as a safe haven asset. Those filthy rich, old money landlords, decked out in Loro Piana, sipping espresso under the Italian sun, check their phones to see their property values climbing again. They quickly call their brokers to mark up the listing prices. Furthermore, the vast majority of global oil trade is settled in US dollars. This arrangement was brokered back in 1974 between Kissinger and Saudi Arabia. You buy oil with dollars, and Saudi Arabia uses those dollars to buy US treasuries. This permanently locks in global demand for the greenback, forming one of the most critical foundational pillars of dollar hegemony. But Iran's gray market oil is settled in RMB and rubles, bypassing the dollar. Though limited in scale, it proves that oil can be traded without the greenback. Naturally, nations long fatigued by the US dollar system, like Russia, India, and China, are more than happy to welcome Iran's alternative workaround. Yet among all the beneficiaries, a few interest groups are impossible to ignore. First is the US military-industrial complex, giants like Lockheed Martin and Raytheon. The other comprises American energy companies like ExxonMobil and Cheniere Energy. Trump might genuinely detest Khamenei, or perhaps he just wants to make history. But the energy sector and defense industry are the GOP's primary sources of cash. By waging this war, oil prices spike, lining the pockets of energy firms, while defense orders surge, handsomely benefiting Lockheed and Raytheon. With this single move, Trump is funneling cash to his two most critical donor groups. Given this dynamic, if Trump seeks a third term, they will absolutely keep backing him. Furthermore, a wartime president enjoys a natural boost in approval ratings. The overarching narrative of defending America is something the Republican base completely devours. The Republican base absolutely devours this narrative, and Trump is no fool. This is a textbook move to kill three birds with one stone. Far more players are profiting at this table than you think. Publicly, everyone condemns the war, but privately, they are all desperate for it to continue. Even Iran probably didn't expect that brandishing RPGs and stirring up chaos would earn them quiet encouragement from so many corners instead of condemnation. Since then, they've mastered the Strait of Hormuz card, playing it with ever-increasing finesse. As for you, my friend, no matter how passionately you've cheered or protested, the harsh reality is that a permanent fixture of unseen elites, including Iran itself, are all reaping massive rewards. Meanwhile, your food delivery bills get more expensive, your rideshare fares spike, and every item in the supermarket quietly changes its price tag as your shopping cart gets costlier. You are the only one left to foot the bill for this high-stakes game. This is the brutal truth behind Iran's blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. Looking back at the headlines, Trump threatened to destroy Iran's power plants. Yet he blinked when the deadline arrived. Because oil prices cannot cross a certain critical threshold, crushing the cost of living for everyday voters. Once that line is crossed, inflation will severely erode his approval ratings. So he wants a strike. But he must control the intensity to keep his donors happy, without letting oil prices get high enough to cause a voter backlash. This is the reason for his flip-flopping, not out of mercy, but because oil prices have hit his absolute red line. Meanwhile, on March 16th, the Israeli military announced that the 91st Division had launched targeted ground operations in southern Lebanon against key Hezbollah strongholds, aiming to establish a forward defensive buffer zone. However, Netanyahu simultaneously demanded that focus remain on Iran, calling Lebanon a secondary front. Targeting Iran remains their historic strategic goal, to dismantle its nuclear capability and permanently eliminate an existential threat. Yet Israel lacks the independent capacity and relies heavily on strong U.S. backing. But Washington prefers a light-touch approach, unwilling to get bogged down in the Mideast, aiming instead to pivot focus to the Asia-Pacific. Meanwhile, fighting Hezbollah is Netanyahu's comfort zone. It enjoys high domestic support and allows him to ramp operations up or down at will, navigating the conflict with ease. Consequently, as the confrontation with Iran cools down toward talks, you will see Israel swiftly shift its focus and military assets back to Lebanon to keep the engines of war humming. Why? Because Netanyahu faces multiple corruption charges at home. The longer the war drags on, the longer these indictments remain frozen, helping him secure his premier seat, which gives him vital leverage for future political horse trading. Thus, he is nowhere near ready for a ceasefire. Except this time, there is a minor wild card. Khamenei is out of the picture. For the past 40 years, Khamenei was the mastermind of Iran's hawkish foreign policy. He knew exactly when to push buttons and when to back off. But with him gone, hardline generals within the Revolutionary Guard are using fierce rhetoric to score political leverage. To them, a ceasefire equals weakness. When your subordinates demand war, backing down means political suicide. Only the moderate technocrats see the situation clearly. Knowing that peace talks are their only future, yet they lack the authority to command. This explains why Trump publicly stated that he doesn't even know who he's negotiating with. Right now, even Iran itself likely doesn't know who is truly in charge. Deep rifts divide the Quds force and the regular army. Who will ultimately claim Iran's top leadership seat is a highly complex question, one that warrants its own dedicated, deep dive analysis. If you're interested, once this video hits 80,000 likes, we will produce a special episode deconstructing Iran's internal power struggles. For now, a true breakthrough will likely have to wait until someone firmly secures that top seat and commands absolute control, capable of keeping the hardline generals in check. Only when they can sign a binding agreement will actual peace materialize. The real objective of this war has never been regime change or saving the youth of Iran. The core objective is simply to dismantle Iran's nuclear capabilities and reset the clock, forcing them to spend another decade rebuilding from scratch. Once that target is achieved, all sides will quickly look for an exit ramp to de-escalate. At the tail end of this conflict, a series of statements will emerge. Washington will tell its citizens the top threats have been neutralized, mission accomplished, God bless America. Israel will declare the Iranian nuclear threat eradicated, shifting to wipe out Hezbollah to protect the homeland. Iran, conversely, will claim a David versus Goliath victory, boasting resilient resistance against foreign aggression that forced partial sanctions relief, while safeguarding the nation's dignity. Long live Iran. With that, everyone goes home, each declaring a massive victory. Iran's nuclear timeline is reset. But the underlying expertise won't vanish. Infrastructure can be rebuilt, and new scientists will be trained. Meanwhile, the strategic leverage of Hormuz remains exactly where it is, in 5 or 10 years. This exact same script will play out all over again. Yet the ultimate outcome of this game will never change. Next time, you will still be the one stuck with the bill. The world is never short of headlines. What it lacks is someone to show you the true trajectory of power operating beneath the surface. Follow me to see the world for what it truly is.